My name is Elizabeth Lederer. I'm an assistant district attorney in New York County. I'd like to ask you some questions about a series of things that happened in Central Park on the night of April 19th of 1989. Before I do that, I'd like to advise you of your rights with respect to statements you may make now, okay? You have the right to remain silent and to refuse to answer any questions. Do you understand?
Yes, I do.
Anything that you say can be used against you in court. Do you understand?
Yes, I do.
You have the right to consult a lawyer now before any questioning and have a lawyer present during any questioning. Do you understand? Could you please answer out loud?
Yes.
If you have no lawyer or cannot afford a lawyer will be provided for you now free of charge before any questioning. Do you understand?
Thank you. Yes.
Now that I've advised you of your rights, are you willing to tell me the truth about what happened in Central Park on the night of April 19th of 1989?
Yes.
Wrongfully convicted of assault and murder. This is the story of the Central Park Five.
I am strongly in favor of the death penalty. I'm saying if they're found guilty, if the woman died, which she hopefully will not be dying, but if the woman died, I think they should be executed.
On the night of April 19th, 1989, Antron McCray, Kevin Richardson, Yusef Salaam, Raymond Santana, and Corey Wise don't know that their lives will be changed forever. The Central Park Five case was a criminal case concerning the assault and rape of Tricia Mailey, a woman in Central Park in Manhattan, New York, on April 19, 1989.
Tonight's news is not so good. Subway crime has hit an all-time high, according to the Transit Police.
Crime in New York City was peaking in the late 1980s and early 1990s as the crack epidemic surged. On the night Mailey was attacked, dozens of teenagers had entered the park, and there were reports of muggings and physical assaults.
Okay, so a group of you go to Central Park. Like, how many people was it?
Oh, it was a lot. It was close to 30. It was a bunch of kids.
I always thought it was more than that. In terms of just the way that the visuals looked, to me it almost looked like 50 people. I was all the way in the back of the crowd because I had a limp. I was walking, I had injured my leg, and they were all already walking into the park and stuff like that. And it's crazy because, even when we think about those times back then, it wasn't something that was abnormal.
Patricia Mailey, a 28-year-old, was going for a regular run in Central Park shortly before 9 p.m. While jogging, she was knocked down, dragged nearly 300 feet 91 meters off the roadway, and violently, physically, and sexually assaulted. About 4 hours later, at 1:30 a.m., she was found naked, gagged, tied, and covered in mud and blood in a shallow ravine about 300 feet north of the 102nd Street crossing, a wooded area of the park. The first policeman who saw her said, "She was beaten as badly as anybody I've ever seen beaten. She looked like she was tortured." Mailey was so badly injured that she was in a coma for 12 days, not awakening until May 1st. Her doctor being interviewed May 3rd. She had severe hypothermia, severe brain damage, severe hemorrhagic shock, loss of 75–80% of her blood, and internal bleeding. Her skull had been fractured so badly that her left eye was dislodged from its socket, which in turn was fractured in 21 places. Mailey was not identified for about 24 hours, and it took days for the police to retrace her movements of that night. By the time of the trial of the first three suspects in June 1990, the New York Times characterized the attack on the jogger as one of the most widely publicized crimes of the 1980s.
Last night, a woman jogger was found unconscious and partially clothed in Central Park. She was beaten and sexually assaulted.
Police took custody of Raymond Santana and Kevin Richardson, both 14 years of age, at approximately 10:15 p.m. on Central Park West and 102nd Street. Stephen Lopez, 1512, was also arrested within an hour of several other attacks being reported to police. He was also interrogated. Antron McCray and Yusef Salaam, both 15 years of age, were brought in for questioning later that day, April 20. They had been identified by other youths as participants in or present at attacks on other victims in Central Park. Corey Wise, then known as Kerry Wise, 16, accompanied Salaam for questioning because they were friends, but was questioned himself. 4 of the 6 suspects, Salaam, Wise, Richardson, and Lopez, lived at the Schomburg Plaza, a mixed-income housing complex at the northeast corner of Central Sea Park. 2 lived further north of there. Analysis indicated that none of the suspects' DNA matched either of the 2 DNA samples collected from the crime scene from the jogger's cervix and running sock, but results were reported as inconclusive by the police. The videotaped confession started on April 21st, after the detectives finished unrecorded interrogations during which the suspects were in custody for at least 7 hours. Santana, McRae, and Richardson made video statements in the presence of parents. Wise made several statements unaccompanied by any parent, guardian, or counsel. Lopez was interviewed on videotape in the presence of his parents on April 21, 1989, beginning at 3:30 a.m.
So, they'll bring an officer in who's real tall. He gives me this look, threatens me. What the fuck are you looking at? At that point, I'm about 5'6", 120 pounds, soaking wet. And it just builds from there. It builds from there until they get me to a point that I feel like I'm so helpless, And for me, that point came because with the officers coming in and out the room, it happened about 3 times. The third time is when the officer who's actually asking me the questions, where he just flips and he's like, I'm tired of this shit. He bangs on the table and he reaches for me. And at that point, I feel like I'm not going to make it off the precinct. I feel like I'm going to die.
According to a later statement by District Attorney Nancy Ryan, all 5 implicated themselves in a number of the crimes which had occurred in the park. While the accounts offered of the crimes beside the rape were accurate, their accounts of the rape contained discrepancies as to when, where, and how it happened. Only Wise made any statement about the different times and locations of the jogger attack, and detectives had taken Wise to the park to observe the crime scene before he made his videotaped confession. None of the 5 said that he had raped the jogger, but each confessed to having been an accomplice. Each youth said that he had only helped restrain the jogger or touched her sexually, while 1 or more others had raped her. Their confessions varied as to who they identified as having participated in the rape, including naming several youths who were never questioned. In his untaped confession, Salam went the furthest in admitting some culpability, claiming to have struck the jogger with a pipe at the beginning of the incident. Although 4 suspects, all except Lopez and Salam, confessed on videotape in the presence of a parent or guardian who had generally not been present during the interrogations, each of the 4 retracted his statement within weeks. Together they claimed that they had been intimidated, lied to, and coerced by police into making false confessions. While the confessions were videotaped, the hours of interrogation that preceded the confessions were not. When taken into custody, Salam told the police he was 16 years old and showed them identification to that effect. If a suspect had reached 16 years of age, his parents or guardians no longer had a right to accompany him during police questioning or to refuse to permit him to answer any questions. After Salam's mother arrived at the station, she insisted that she wanted a lawyer for her son, and the police stopped the questioning. He neither made a videotape nor signed the earlier written statement, but the court ruled to accept it as evidence before his trial. Detective Tom McKenna falsely told Salam that his fingerprints had been found on the victim's clothing. McKenna reported that Salam subsequently confessed being present at the scene of the rape. Years later, Salam said, "I would hear them beating up Corey Wise in the next room, and they would come and look at me and say, 'You realize you're next.' The fear made me feel really like I was not going to be able to make it out." 2 weeks after their confessions, each of the suspects recanted. They argued that their statements were coerced by police and that their rights to counsel and Miranda warnings had been violated.
I signed a statement, and then he goes, "Okay, I need you to do one more thing for me." And I go, "What?" He says, "I'm going to send you to another precinct. You're going to tell another officer the same story, and you'll be fine. You want to go home, right? This is you helping me, I'm going to help you."
5 teens between the ages of 15 and 17 were charged with numerous rape, sodomy, and assault counts.